Okay, here we go. Third segment here. It's been awesome talking about that. So one of my favorite topics probably is this right here, because we can understand, like, man, if we can again just kind of talking about what we did, or debriefing a little bit on our last segment, like to renew the mind, we got to heal the heart, right? So let's kind of talk about like the purpose of that, you know. And so I think we find that again in Romans 12, where we were last time, and verse 2, not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You may prove, I think this is huge, you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And so when you begin to see this, you can connect that with 1 Corinthians 2 that we talked about as well too. And that is in verse 14, but the natural man does not receive the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolish to him, nor can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. So now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now I'm understanding the purpose of walking around with a healed heart and a renewed mind.
Yes.
Because now with that renewed mind, I can know what is the good, the perfect, or the good, the acceptable, and perfect will of God.
Mm-hmm.
Because now all of a sudden, again, the spirit of who I am is controlling. The spirit of who I am is awakening. And so the spirit man is the only one who can discern the spiritual things of God.
Yes.
And so, you know, going all the way back to talking about identity and sonship, the purpose of the Son, or one of the purposes of the Son, is to be the expression of who the Father is, right? So expressing who he is, or the self-manifestation of the Father being found in us, that's impossible when we're led by a carnal mind, or led by an unrenewed mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing we have to begin to understand, because it's like, even in Romans 8, it talks about like the flesh and the spirit, right? They war with each other. They're constantly in this war. And so there's no way that we're going to be able to walk the earth in everyday situations, whether we're at the grocery store, we're at work, no matter where we're at, the gas station. We're never going to be able to hear God. We're never going to be able to hear his voice. We're never going to be able to do what he's asking us to do, or even discern, God, what do you want me to do in this situation when it comes to life's questions, you know, like big things that are coming up, and we got to make these decisions. And the last thing we want to do is make it by an unrenewed mind, because an unrenewed mind will never give us the perfect will of God.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I think that's one thing we have to understand.
Yeah.
Because I always say this, and I think we said in the last segment as well too, is like, we're not human beings having a spiritual encounter. We're spiritual beings having a human being encounter.
Yep.
And so the goal of a son or a daughter walking the earth is to be led by the Spirit in everything that we're doing. And so that's one of the main purposes, is that now our hearts are being healed, minds being renewed, and all of a sudden now we're naturally being led by the Spirit. We're hearing the voice of God. We're being led by the voice of God. God's speaking to us in different circumstances. God's speaking to us at the grocery store. God's saying, hey, that person needs this. That person, go give that person $20 or whatever it is. And now we're able to do that because, I mean, we all have walked with the Lord long enough. When God speaks to you, it doesn't really make any natural sense, right? Like your last 20, he's like, give it. And it's like, if I'm operating from an unrenewed mind, there's no way I'm giving it, because it's my last 20. There's no way, right? So it makes we always say too, the kingdom of God and the way the kingdom functions and in the culture of the kingdom is they're opposite of the world.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why Paul writes, don't be conformed to this world.
Yeah.
Because the world's standards, the world's culture, the world's quote unquote truth is completely opposite.
Right.
And you're never going to be able to discern the kingdom of God by walking around with your heart that's still hurt, walking around with trauma in your heart, walking around with strongholds in your heart. But man, when you start healing your heart, renewing your mind, all of a sudden now his voice becomes, you can recognize it again. So, yeah.
That's so cool because I feel like it's like, this is the picture I got while you were speaking. Two things. First thing was I felt like it's like those old radios you have to turn to tune.
Yeah.
And it's like you're searching. It's like you've found this. You've passed right over the radio station and you like got clarity for just a second, but then because of your circumstance, you're still scrolling. And it's like immediately, it's like God is literally saying like, hey, renew your mind. And every time you renew your mind, you find that sweet spot. Wow. So it's like immediately you're just like, oh, I'm locked in on the King.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hearing his voice.
So do you feel like, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but do you feel like with each healed heart moment tunes us in?
Absolutely.
To the frequency, if you will?
Absolutely. It becomes I think it becomes louder and louder, because like in reality, like, we sometimes we might hear other thoughts, we have thoughts that come and, try to, sway us and get us to choose this over that, or, trying to distract us from choosing to, follow, what it is that the Lord wants. And I think that as we continue, to like you just said, tuning in, like that those become like lesser and lesser, like you can't, like it's
because when you find the voice, the static like ceases.
Yeah.
So it's like even the static of like trying to find, like recognizing, okay, God, like you have set me up in this place. I recognize you. I hear your voice. I want to, like, I'm following your voice. I'm tuning in. And that was so said well, like, in the sense of just like when you find his voice, everything gets louder. It's like, oh man, I have clarity over that now. I see it now. I sense this now. It's like, and
his voice is
his voice, and in that renewing happens every single time. It's like, oh man, I'm waking up to this new reality.
Yeah.
Oh man, I see this. Oh wow. Okay, God. And even out of that place, I believe your giftings begin to just like, whew. Like that's why God, I just believe God like highlights, like, and that's it's his kingdom operation. It's like in a world that says take, God calls us to what? Give.
Yeah.
And it's like when everybody's hands are going like this, your hands are going like that.
Yeah.
And it's like that's how the kingdom works. That's like tapping into kingdom heavenly currency.
Yeah. And even the world we live in right now has so many voices to it.
Right. Oh yeah.
I mean, so many. So you take the world and what the world's trying to throw at us right now with so many voices, and then you take trauma that's happened to us, that in itself has a voice.
Right.
Depression has a voice. Yes. Fear has a voice. Like all of that has a voice on top of the world's voice. And it's like, if you'll picture that, like a person walking the earth and all of those voices, how are you ever going to know how to manifest the will of God?
Right.
Yeah.
And, like you're going to do at the best just trying to survive every day.
Yeah.
When we were never called to survive, we were always called to dominate.
That's right.
But survival always comes from a heart it's not healed.
Yeah.
Right. And then so the domination always comes from the spirit that is within. And so I think that's really good, just being able to key in on that that station.
Yep.
And it's funny you say old is like I that was me, back in the day, like still tuning into that. So that's really, really, really good.
Wow.
Because and that's what we're called to do, right? We're called as sons and daughters to be able to bring the kingdom, bring the culture of the kingdom, which is the will of God, to the earth.
Yep.
And so again, just kind of breaking that down is like through the presence, through the worship, through the revelation, hearts being exposed. It's like you can't avoid the process.
Yeah.
When you talk about the renewed mind, you can't avoid the process because the first step in the process of renewed mind is the exposed heart. Like what's still in there that shouldn't be in there,
right?
That's keeping you from manifesting like the genesis of who you are, and that now the Spirit's going to hone in on that and go, hey, we need to deal with that. We have to deal with that because you are manifesting your hurt.
Right.
You're manifesting your trauma and you need to manifest like the fullness of who he is.
Yeah. And you can't just like choose to like keep one thing and then let go of all the others. You know, like we talk about dying to ourselves. It's like, yes, dying to ourselves, but also like, what does that actually require? That literally, like, that might actually require us, like, strip, not only like in our spirit, stripping everything away, but physically, like, what does that look like? Like, are you, like, the music that you're letting it come into your ears?
Yeah.
Like the trash that's being released these days, like, that's not going to renew your mind.
Right.
The things that we watch, that we let into our eye gates and are affecting our hearts, that's not going to renew your mind.
Right.
You know, so it's like
Sure.
really being like, and I'm not saying there's like a list of cans and can'ts, because obviously like that's conviction for
Right,
like
sure.
whatever the Lord convicts you in. But, you know, I think that that's something that's really important in, you know, the fully, you know, the full renewal of your mind as well.
Yeah.
And just like being able to truly walk in everything that the Lord's called you to. It's like, you know, okay, we're going on on this journey together. And that means like, you know, like I'm gonna have to like give everything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a, you know, again, it's a free will choice
Yeah.
that we got to make, you know, in every aspect. Because when you look at the broader picture of just me or just you, we're members of an entire big C church,
Yeah.
right? Big global ecclesia. And so for the world to be filled with the knowledge of the glory of God, each individual must be filled with the glory of God.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden now, that is a renewing of the mind too, like switching from just, it's all about me, to realizing like, as I'm allowing my heart to be healed, as I'm allowing my mind to be renewed, it's helping the body global so that the fuller expression of God can be seen, and the knowledge of the glory of God can be poured out by the ecclesia as each individual heart is being healed and each mind is being renewed. Like we say a lot here, like the city that we're in here, like how do you change an entire community? How do you change an entire city? How do you change an entire county, a state, and a nation? I think simply put, it's one healed heart at a time. You know, that's how you can't get too overwhelmed about everything that's happening. It's literally just being the hands and feet in someone's life, being that gospel in someone's life, seeing a testimony that came that, like, listen, if God did that for you, he can do it for me. That's what they're saying. Yeah. And then all of a sudden now that one person heart is being healed, their mind is being renewed, and then they have the opportunity to go and do that. So does that make sense? Like one healed heart at a time.
Yep.
That's how this whole thing's going to happen.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's good.
I agree, and I'm going to go to Proverbs 4. I love Proverbs 4, and it's like verse 20 through 27, and I'm not going to read all of it, but just some things like literally in Proverbs, and I'm reading out of the Passion, but the title of this passage is called Healing Words. And so it says, listen carefully, my dear child, to everything that I teach you, and pay attention to all that I have to say. Fill your thoughts with my words until they penetrate deep in your spirit.
Oh, that's good.
Then as you unwrap my words, they will impart true life and radiant health into the very core of your being. So above all, guard the affections of your heart, for they affect all that you are. Pay attention to the welfare of your innocent being, for from there flows the wellspring of life. Avoid dishonest speech and pretentious words. Be free from using perverse words, no matter what.
Wow.
Right? And then it says, watch where you're going. So set your gaze on the path before you. With fixed purpose, look straight ahead. Ignore life's distractions. Watch where you're going. Stick to the path of truth, and the road will be safe and smooth before you. Don't allow yourself to be sidetracked for even a moment, or take the detour that leads to darkness. And I think it's cool because Liz was talking about ear gates and eye gates.
Yeah.
Like that's something I feel like we've been just really like honing in on right now in the youth, is like, you know, how do you teach them? Like, you can't just tell a youth, don't watch this. Because what are they going to do?
Yeah,
they're going to go and watch it.
Yeah.
Hey, don't listen to this. Because what are they going to do? They're going to go and listen for it.
Yeah.
Like the curiosity, it's like it strikes up curiosity. And the enemy loves curiosity. He loves curiosity because he's like, if I can just get my hand in there.
Yeah.
If I can just get just in the doorway.
Yeah.
Right? Give him an inch, he's going to take a mile.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is so cool because when you teach kids, hey, listen, your ear gates, your ears are gates, your eyes are gates, and what you allow in is based on that filter that you've set in front of them. And so if the filter is not of the Lord, then you have to be very cautious. Then you have to be, because then it's like Liz was saying, like, how do you expect to renew your mind if you're feeding it something that's not renewing, like something that's just coming from a place where it's like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not the Lord. Like, that's not. And that's why I feel like your spirit, man, again, through the renewing, through the healing of the heart, through all of these things, like the conviction of the Holy Spirit will begin to like literally touch and be like, hey, this isn't good.
Right.
Like, I think it was funny. And, you know, one of the students yesterday was like, I was using the bathroom and I left the bathroom and I saw a piece of trash on the floor.
Yeah.
I walked right by it. But then she's like, I just felt like this little thing inside of me go pick it up. And she was like, she battled because she was like, I don't know if I should. And she said, and then again, it was like, go pick it up. And it was like, oh. So she turns around, she goes, picks it up. Nobody was around.
Right.
She goes and picks it up and throws it in the trash.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like something that you have to teach, and being like in the business, being in a business, teaching these things, like you're teaching responsibility, you're teaching characteristics, you're teaching them how to be an employee, how to be mindful of these things, how to watch for these things. Now that person has just experienced it without having any prompting. Because why? They've allowed the Spirit of God to renew their mind, renew their heart, renew everything inside of them to the core.
Yeah.
And now they're walking in victory. Yeah. And it's like, if I'm going to walk in victory, everything else around me is going to walk in victory.
Right.
Which sometimes victory means cleanliness, having a spirit of excellence. Like these are things that we're not having to teach. Why? Because they've received it.
Yeah.
Because they're saying, oh, yes, I want the transformation.
Yeah.
I recognize ear gates, eye gates.
Yeah.
I'm not having to teach into this. Why? Because they're receiving it.
Yeah.
I don't have to teach something. Like, I'm sorry, I get to this place where I'm like, how many times are we going to get to that place where the teaching overcomes the worship? Because I promise you in heaven, they're not teaching.
Right.
They're worshiping a king.
Right.
Why are we still like, I don't know, to me, I'm like, it just, oh man, it gets me so excited because it's like, now I don't have to, God, you.
Yeah.
Like you will, because it's your will.
Yeah. Eventually we just steward
That's
what
it.
God's already doing by his presence, by his glory, you know, all
Everything.
those things. So like for me, I think it's really interesting because again, our call on the earth as sons and daughters is to produce the will of the Father.
Absolutely.
Right. And even the renewing of the mind will call me. It'll summons me into my destiny.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of people that are following Jesus right now that aren't walking in their destiny because they don't understand this spiritual truth, because their hearts are still hurt. They're still got trauma. And so there's no ability to walk in destiny. And it starts out in the little small things like the trash, right? So quick story, and then we'll end this one. But like before God called me to full-time ministry, as I was pastoring full-time, working full-time, I remember I was a supervisor at a dynamite plant. And I remember walking in the break room and did something I don't remember what it was. And I walk out and the trash was already full. And I think I washed my hands and I threw the paper towel and it hits the top and falls out. And so I remember kind of closing the door and I hear the Lord say, because he was teaching me obedience, but obedience came because my heart was being healed and I was hearing the voice of God.
Yeah.
And so I hear him say, hey, go pick the piece of trash, you know, and kind of in my own pride, even though I'm like, you know, listen, I'm a supervisor. They'll get that. You know, somebody's going to pick that up, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was like, under conviction, I just went, I picked it up. And well, all of a sudden, you know, in that moment, months was going on. He was having me pick up other people's trash.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even my trash. Right. And so I remember, going and pulling into a safety meeting, I hear the Lord say, hey, August 17th, you're going to quit. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you're going full-time ministry. I'm giving you a date, August 17th. And I'm like, oh, I just remember being so excited. Long story short, it's my last day. I give him 3 months awareness. And it's my last day. And I'm pulling out. And I remember giving the badge to the security guard, saying bye to them. And as I'm pulling out of the plant, I hear the Lord say, if you would have never picked that piece of trash up months ago, you would never be leaving this job.
Wow.
And I was like, see, because I was on my path to my destiny.
That's it.
I was on my path to what he called me into.
Holy moly.
But that's the importance, right?
Yes.
Of letting God expose us, healing our hearts, because if we don't, it's a blockage to hearing the voice of God.
Yeah.
And there's no way, if I can't hear him to pick a piece of trash up, I'm never going to be able to hear him and be obedient when he says, hey, I want you to quit a really good job to go get paid not very good money and lose all of your medical benefits, all of your health, all of your life, all of your dental, all of your vision. Like, we had it made. And it was like, I want you to quit all of that for this. And if I'd never been obedient and let him heal my heart in the process, and my mind was never renewed, I'd never heard the voice of God that way.
Wow.
And I would never, even if you hear the voice of God, you don't have what's in you to be obedient to the voice without first healing the heart, renewing the mind, so that I can walk in my destiny and really just be the expression of who God is.
Absolutely.
So that his kingdom can come,
good.
that his will can be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Absolutely.
So, awesome, guys.
So good.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
Anthony.
Yeah.